September 1942. A small plane flies low over occupied France in the dead of night. Inside, a young woman sits on the cold metal floor, her parachute strapped tight to her back. She's 22 years old, working class, tough as nails. She volunteered for this. Nobody forced her. Nobody even asked her. She demanded it. In a few minutes, she'll jump out of this plane into Nazi-occupied territory. She'll be the first woman to do it, the first female secret agent to parachute behind enemy lines. No training manual for this, no precedent. No woman had ever done what she's about to do. And here's what gets me. Here's what should get you, too. She wasn't some aristocrat playing at war. She wasn't a society lady looking for adventure. She was a shop girl from the Paris suburbs, a bakery worker, a tomboy who loved cycling and climbing trees. And when France fell to the Nazis, when millions ran or hid or collaborated, she fought back, first with the French resistance, then with British intelligence. And now, sitting in this freezing plane over occupied France, she's about to become the woman who opened the door for every female agent who came after. Her name was Andrée Borrel, and if you've never heard of her, that's exactly the problem we're here to fix tonight. Because this woman, this incredible, fearless, brilliant woman, did more in her 24 years than most people do in a lifetime. And the way she died, my friends, the way she died will break your heart and make you angry and remind you what real courage looks like. Let me paint you a picture of who Andrée Borrel really was. Because before she became a legend, before she became the first, she was just a girl from Bécon-le-Bruyère, a working-class suburb northwest of Paris, born November 18th, 1919. And right from the start, life wasn't easy. Her father, Louis, was a working man. Didn't have much. The family scraped by, but they had each other. And then, when Andrée was just 11 years old, her father died. 11 years, old, that's 6th grade. That's still playing with dolls and riding bikes. And suddenly, there's no father, no income, just a mother, Eugénie, trying to figure out how to feed 2 daughters in a world that didn't care much about working-class widows. Think about what that does to a kid. Some children would break, some would withdraw, some would give up. Andrée got tougher. She had to. At 14 years old, when most girls her age were still in school, dreaming about their futures, Andrée left school and went to work. 14. That's the age when American kids today are worried about high school drama and who's taking who to the dance. Andrée was working full-time to help support her family. First job, working for a dress designer. Probably sewing, probably doing the grunt work nobody else wanted to do. Long hours, sore fingers, low pay. But it helped. It kept food on the table. Then she got a job at a bakery in Paris. Boulangerie Pajot. She's a shop assistant now, standing behind the counter, serving customers 6 days a week. But she loved it because Sundays were off. And what did she do on Sundays? She cycled out into the French countryside, miles and miles, just her and her bicycle and the open road. That was freedom. That was escape. That was where she could breathe. Her sister Léon described her as a tomboy, said she had the strength and endurance and interests of a boy. Her favorite things? Cycling through the French countryside, hiking in the mountains, climbing trees and rocks, physical challenges, testing herself. She wasn't sitting around dreaming about fancy dresses and parties like some of the other shop girls. She wasn't interested in the social games, the gossip, the drama. She was out there, physical, active, tough, pushing her limits, finding out what she was capable of. You know what that tells me? That tells me she was built different from the start. Built for what was coming, even though she didn't know it yet. Because when the war came, when France fell, When most people were looking for ways to survive, to keep their heads down, to make it through, Andrée was going to do the opposite. She was going to fight. And all those years of cycling, all that physical toughness, all that independence and self-reliance, that was preparing her for the most important mission of her life. Now let's jump ahead to 1939. Andrée's 20 years old. She's been working for years now, supporting her family, making a life in Paris. But she's also been paying attention to the world. And in 1939, the world is on fire. In Spain, there's a civil war raging. The Spanish Republic, democratically elected, is fighting against fascist forces led by General Franco. And who's backing Franco? Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. They're using Spain as a testing ground for their weapons, their tactics, their war machine. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union is backing the Republicans, sending supplies and volunteers. And all across Europe, people who believe in democracy, people who hate fascism, they're traveling to Spain to fight. Andrée's got socialist sympathies. She believes in fighting for what's right. She believes that when you see evil, you don't turn away. You confront it. So when she hears about what's happening in Spain, when she hears about the international brigades, volunteers from around the world going to fight fascism, she doesn't just read about it in the papers and cluck her tongue and say, "What a shame." She goes there. She travels to Spain. A 20-year-old shopgirl from the Paris suburbs, and she's crossing the border into a war zone because she believes in something bigger than herself. Think about that for a second. Think about the courage that takes. This isn't 2026. There's no internet where you can research exactly what's happening. There's no cell phone to stay in touch with your family. There's no safety net. You're traveling into a country at war, where people are dying every day, where bombs are falling and bullets are flying. And you're going anyway because you believe it's the right thing to do. But by the time Andrée gets there, the war's basically lost. The Republic is collapsing. The fascists are winning. Franco's going to take control of Spain and rule as a dictator for the next 36 years. There's nothing she can do. So she turns around and comes back to France. But that trip, that decision to go, that tells you everything you need to know about her character. When she sees injustice, she doesn't look away. She acts. Even if she can't win, even if it's dangerous, even if everyone thinks she's crazy, she acts. Remember that, because you're going to see it again and again in her story. September 1939. World War II breaks out. Germany invades Poland on September 1st. 2 days later, France and Britain declare war on Germany. The world that Andrée knew, the fragile peace that had held since the end of the First World War, it's over. Europe's going back to war. And what does Andrée do? Does she panic? Does she flee? Does she try to get to safety? No. She enrolls in a crash course in nursing. She completes it on January 20th, 1940, gets qualified to serve as a nurse for the Association des Dames Françaises. She's not running from the war. She's running toward it. She's assigned to Hôpital Complémentaire in Nîmes in southern France in early February. She's working as a nurse now, taking care of soldiers, taking care of the wounded, doing her part. But here's the problem. There's a rule. Nurses under 21 can't serve in hospitals, and Andrée's only 20. So after 15 days, they send her home. She's crushed. She volunteered. She trained. She wants to help. And they're sending her away because of a stupid rule about age. But get this. A few days later, the rule gets revoked. They realize they need every nurse they can get. War's coming, and age restrictions are a luxury they can't afford. So Andrée's reassigned to Hôpital de Beaucaire in the town of Beaucaire, and she's working there alongside other nurses, alongside doctors, alongside a lieutenant named Maurice Dufour. Remember that name. because Dufour's going to change André's life. Now, at this point, it's early 1940. The war's been declared, but nothing's really happened yet. The French army's sitting behind the Maginot Line, this massive system of fortifications along the French-German border. The Germans are on the other side. Everyone's waiting. They call it the phony war, or the Sitzkrieg, the sitting war. Nobody's attacking, nobody's moving, it's a standoff, and people are starting to think maybe it won't be so bad, maybe there won't be massive battles like the First World War, maybe both sides will come to their senses and negotiate a peace. They were wrong, dead wrong. May 1940, Nazi Germany invades France. And this is where you need to understand just how catastrophic this was. The French army was supposed to be one of the most powerful militaries in the world. They had fought Germany to a standstill in World War I. They had the Maginot Line, this supposedly impenetrable fortress system. They had tanks, planes, soldiers. Everyone expected that if Germany attacked, France would hold. Maybe for months, maybe for years. Maybe long enough for Britain and eventually America to join the fight and turn the tide. 6 weeks. That's how long France lasted. 6 weeks. The Germans went around the Maginot Line through Belgium. They used a new kind of warfare, blitzkrieg, lightning war. Fast-moving tanks supported by aircraft, punching through enemy lines, creating chaos and panic. The French army, designed to fight the last war, couldn't adapt. Units were cut off, surrounded, destroyed. The command structure collapsed. And on June 14, 1940, German soldiers marched into Paris, the city of light, the capital of France, occupied by Nazis. The French government fled to Bordeaux. And on June 22, 1940, they signed an armistice. France surrendered. Germany occupied northern France, including Paris. They set up a puppet government in southern France, based in the town of Vichy. The Vichy regime collaborated with the Nazis. They enforced Nazi racial laws. They arrested Jews and resistance fighters and handed them over to the Germans. They helped the Nazi war machine, and millions of French people either went along with it or actively supported it. But not everyone surrendered. Some people fled to England and joined the Free French forces under Charles de Gaulle. Some people stayed in France and started organizing resistance networks, small groups at first, a few people printing illegal newspapers, a few people helping British pilots escape, a few people listening to BBC broadcasts and spreading the news. Tiny acts of defiance that would eventually grow into a full-scale resistance movement. Andrée was in southern France when France fell. The hospital she was working at closed in July 1940, and Lieutenant Maurice Dufour, the man she'd been working with, he had a proposition for her. He wasn't just an army lieutenant. He was part of something bigger, something secret, something dangerous. He was involved with an escape network called the Pat Line, run by a Belgian army doctor named Albert Guéris, though he went by the alias Pat O'Leary. The network helped Allied airmen shot down over France escape back to England. They helped SOE agents who needed to get out. They helped Jews fleeing persecution. They helped anyone the Nazis wanted dead. And Dufour wanted Andrée to join him, not as a nurse, as a resistance fighter, working to get people to safety, moving them through the network, hiding them, feeding them, guiding them across the border into Spain. It was illegal. It was dangerous. If you got caught, the penalty was torture and execution. No trial, no mercy, just pain and death. Dufour was asking Andrée to risk her life for people she'd never met, for Allied pilots she'd never see again, for refugees she'd never know by name. Andrée said yes. Of course she said yes, because that's who she was. When someone needed help, she helped. When there was a fight against injustice, she fought. It didn't matter that it was dangerous. It didn't matter that she could die. It mattered that it was right. August 1941. Andrée and Dufour set up a safe house called Villa René-Thérèse in Canet-plage, right on the Mediterranean coast, just outside the town of Perpignan, near the Spanish border. This is the last stop before people try to escape over the Pyrenees mountains into Spain. Think about what that means. These people, these British pilots and Jewish families and resistance fighters, they're on the run for their lives. The Gestapo's hunting them. French collaborators are turning people in for cash rewards. Neighbors are informing on neighbors. One wrong move, one person talks, one piece of bad luck, and everyone dies. And Andrée's running the safe house. She's the one these terrified people meet when they arrive. She's the one who has to calm them down, feed them, hide them, and prepare them for the most dangerous part of their journey. The crossing, over the Pyrenees, in the dark, in all weather, following guides who may or may not be trustworthy, avoiding German patrols on one side and Spanish border guards on the other. It's a nightmare. And she's 22 years old, doing this work day after day, knowing that every knock on the door could be the Gestapo coming to arrest her. Imagine the stress, imagine the fear. Every night you go to bed wondering if this is the night they come for you. Every morning you wake up and you have to act normal. You have to go into town for supplies. You have to smile at the shopkeepers. You have to pretend everything's fine, and all the while you've got fugitives hiding in your house. You've got forged papers stashed in secret compartments. You've got escape routes mapped out in your head. One mistake, one slip of the tongue, one suspicious neighbor, and it's all over. And the villa gets too small. Too many people are coming through. Too many British pilots being shot down. Too many Jews fleeing the roundups. Too many agents needing extraction. So in October 1941, they rent a bigger place, Villa Anita. More space, more capacity, more risk. And Andrée keeps working. For more than a year, she's helping people escape the Nazis, dozens of people, maybe hundreds. We'll never know the exact number because these operations were secret. Records were destroyed. People used code names. But we know this. Andrée Borrel saved lives. Lots of them. British airmen who went home to their families, Jewish children who survived the Holocaust, resistance fighters who lived to fight another day. They all owed their lives to this shopgirl from Paris who decided that saving strangers was worth risking everything. And let me tell you something else. This wasn't glamorous. This wasn't exciting spy stuff like in the movies. This was terrifying, exhausting, soul-crushing work. It was staying awake all night because you heard a noise outside and you're not sure if it's a cat or the Gestapo. It was saying goodbye to people you'd grown to care about, knowing you'd never see them again, not knowing if they'd make it across the mountains. It was living with the constant knowledge that the next person who came through your door might be the one who betrayed you. That's what resistance work looked like on the ground. That's what Andrée lived with every single day. December 1941. The network's been compromised. The Germans are closing in. Too many people know too much. The net's tightening. Andrée and Dufour have to run. They go into hiding, waiting for their chance to escape. Finally, in mid-February 1942, they make their move. They cross the Pyrenees on foot, mountains in winter, freezing cold. If you slip, you die. If the Spanish border guards catch you, they send you back to France, and you die. But they make it. They get to Spain. From Spain, they get to Portugal. And from Portugal, they fly to England. Dufour arrives on March 29, 1942. Andrée arrives on April 24, 1942. She's made it to England. She's safe. She could stay here, sit out the war, work in an office, survive. But that's not who Andrée Borrel is. Here's what happens when you arrive in England from occupied Europe. They take you to the Royal Patriotic School, the MI5 Security Clearance Center. They interrogate you. They check your story. They make sure you're not a German spy. The report on Andrée says this, and I want you to hear these exact words. Mademoiselle Borrel's story seems perfectly straightforward. She is an excellent type of country girl who has intelligence and seems a keen patriot. From a security point of view, I can find nothing against Mademoiselle Borrel and recommend her release. An excellent type of country girl. That's what they saw. A tough, smart, working-class woman who'd proven herself under fire. Andrée wants to join the Free French forces, but here's the problem. The Free French don't trust people who worked with the British, and they want her to tell them everything about the escape network, give up every name, every detail. Andrée refuses. She's not betraying the people she worked with. She's not giving up operational secrets. So the Free French say no. Fine. She doesn't need them, because somebody else is interested in Andrée Borrel, the Special Operations Executive, the SOE, Churchill's secret army, the organization tasked with setting Europe ablaze. They're recruiting agents to parachute into occupied France, organize resistance networks, sabotage Nazi operations, gather intelligence, and prepare for the eventual Allied invasion. It's the most dangerous job in the war. And they want women to do it. Why women? Because women can move through occupied territory in ways men can't. A woman traveling alone doesn't attract as much suspicion. A woman can carry messages, act as a courier, blend in. The Gestapo's looking for male agents. Women can slip through. But here's the thing. In 1942, nobody's ever done this before. No woman has ever parachuted into enemy territory as a secret agent. The SOE's thinking about it, planning it, but they need the right woman to go first. They need someone tough, someone experienced, someone who won't break. They need Andrée Borrel. May 15th, 1942. Andrée officially joins the SOE. She's assigned to F Section, the French section. She's enrolled in the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry, the FANYs, which is the cover organization for female SOE agents. Her rank, lieutenant. Now she goes through training. And let me tell you, SOE training was no joke. This wasn't a weekend course. This was months of intensive, brutal preparation for the most dangerous job in the war. They start with physical conditioning, running, climbing, endurance training. These agents need to be able to march for hours carrying heavy loads. They need to be able to run if they're being chased. They need stamina because when you're operating behind enemy lines, you don't get days off. You don't get to rest when you're tired. You push through or you die. Then there's weapons training, pistols, rifles, submachine guns, grenades. They learn to fire accurately under stress. They learn to field strip weapons, clean them, maintain them. They learn what to do when a weapon jams in the middle of a firefight. They practice shooting in the dark, shooting from cover, shooting while moving. Because if they end up in combat, there won't be time to think. It has to be instinct. Explosives training, how to set charges on railway lines, how to sabotage factories, how to blow up bridges, how much explosive you need for different targets, how to set timers, how to make bombs from common materials. The science of destruction. Because the whole point of SOE is sabotage, disrupting the Nazi war machine, making them afraid, making them waste resources guarding every bridge and railway and factory because they don't know where the next attack will come from. Hand-to-hand combat, silent killing, how to take out a guard without making noise, how to defend yourself if you're grabbed, pressure points, chokeholds, knife fighting. These women aren't just learning to shoot, they're learning to kill with their bare hands if necessary. Think about that. A shop girl from Paris, learning how to snap a man's neck, learning where to stab to kill instantly and quietly. That's not normal training. That's training to be a weapon. Then there's the clandestine stuff. How to live undercover, how to maintain your cover story, how to spot surveillance, how to lose a tail, how to use dead drops and cutouts and all the spy craft that keeps you alive when the Gestapo's looking for you. They practice meeting contacts without being seen. They learn codes and ciphers. They memorize procedures for radio communication. They study the psychology of interrogation. What the Germans will do if they catch you. How to resist. How to protect your network, even under torture. And here's the dark part. They're taught that if they're captured, the best they can hope for is to hold out for 48 hours before they break. That's the goal. 48 hours, because that gives the network time to evacuate, to change locations, to burn documents, to disappear. After 48 hours, everyone assumes you've talked. Not because you're weak, but because everyone breaks eventually. The Gestapo has refined torture to a science. They know how to inflict maximum pain. They know how to break people psychologically. Sleep deprivation, beatings, electric shocks, waterboarding. Things I'm not going to describe in detail because they're too horrific. But the SOE agents knew. They knew what awaited them if they were caught, and they volunteered anyway. The Commandant's report on Andrée says this: of sound intelligence, if lacking somewhat in imagination, she has little organizing ability and will do her best work under definite instructions. She is thoroughly tough and self-reliant with no nerves, has plenty of common sense, and is well able to look after herself in any circumstances, and she is absolutely reliable. Has lost her attitude of overconfidence and has benefited enormously from the course and developed a thoroughly level-headed approach towards problems. A very pleasant personality, and she should eventually develop into a first-class agent. Now, if you're enjoying this story, if you're learning something, if Andrée Borrel's courage is inspiring you, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because stories like this, stories about real heroes who changed history, these need to be told, and when you subscribe, you're telling YouTube that this matters, that history matters, that remembering people like Andrée Borrel matters. It helps this channel reach more people. It helps more people learn about these incredible women. So if you're still with me, if you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe. It's free. It takes 2 seconds, and it makes a real difference, okay? Thank you. Read between the lines of that training report. They're saying she's not a strategic mastermind. She's not going to plan the big picture. She's not the one who's going to create the master plan for the invasion of Europe. But when you give her a job, she'll get it done. She's tough. She's fearless. She's reliable. She doesn't panic. She doesn't freeze. She keeps her head when everything's falling apart, and that's exactly what they need in an agent, because behind enemy lines, plans fall apart. Things go wrong. You can't predict what's going to happen. You need someone who can adapt, who can think on their feet, who can handle the unexpected without falling apart. The men she trained with described her as informal, lower class, scrappy, not in a mean way. They liked her. She was easy to talk to, easy to share a smoke with. No pretensions, no putting on airs, just a real person. But they also knew she was tough. One agent remembered her saying she'd kill a German in his sleep by stabbing a pencil through his ear, and the agent said he had no doubt she meant it. There was something in her eyes, something that said she'd do whatever it took to complete the mission, that she wouldn't hesitate. That's the person you want watching your back in a war zone. Now, while Andrée's training, the SOE is planning something called Operation Whitebeam. They're going to send agents into France to set up resistance networks. Major Francis Subtle, codename Prosper, is going to lead a network in Paris and northern France. It's going to be the SOE's largest and most important network in France, and they need a courier, someone to carry messages, make connections, organize meetings, someone who knows Paris, someone tough enough to handle the pressure. They choose Andrée Borrel, September 24th, 1942. First attempt. André and another agent, Lisdy, Baysac, board a RAF, Whitley bomber at RAF Tempsford. They fly to France. They reach the drop zone, but the signals on the ground aren't right. The pilot refuses to drop them. It's too dangerous. So they fly all the way back to England. Imagine that. Squeezed into a freezing bomber, parachute on your back, legs cramped, terrified, ready to jump, and then nothing. Turn around, try again tomorrow. September 25th, 1942. They go again. Same plane, same route. This time, the signals are correct. The drop zone is ready. Years later, Lise de Baysac remembered it like this. We sat on the floor of the airplane, much too tense for conversation, which in any case was not possible because of the noise. I don't remember how long it was until the dispatcher opened the hole, which meant we were arriving. We crept nearer, getting our legs into position. We had drawn straws, and luck gave Andrée the first jump. I went immediately after her. You had to jump very quickly, one right after the other, because the plane is going on, and you might be dropped very far from each other. Andrée Borrel jumped first. She was the first woman to parachute into Nazi-occupied France as a secret agent. The first. They landed in a field near Saint-Laurent-Nouan, about 160 kilometers southeast of Paris. Members of the local resistance were waiting for them. They gathered up the parachutes, hid the evidence, and got the women to safety. Andrée Borrel was now behind enemy lines. Here's what you need to understand about occupied France in 1942. The Germans controlled everything. They had checkpoints everywhere. You needed papers to travel. They could stop you any time, search you, interrogate you. If your papers didn't match your story, you were arrested. If someone informed on you, you were arrested. If you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you were arrested. And if you were arrested as a resistance fighter or an SOE agent, you were tortured and then you were killed. There was no safety net, no escape plan. If you got caught, you were on your own. And Andrée knew that when she jumped. Early October 1942, Andrée meets Francis Subtle, the leader of the Prosper Network, at a cafe in Paris that she knows from before the war. Imagine that reunion. She's back in her city, Paris, the city she grew up near, the city she worked in. But it's not the same Paris. German soldiers everywhere, Nazi flags hanging from buildings, swastikas on the Arc de Triomphe. Her city occupied by the enemy, and she's here to fight back. With information from Germain Tambour, a contact from another resistance network called CART, they start building the Prosper Network. They travel all over northern France, Rouen, Le Mans, Tours, Lille, small towns and villages, meeting people, feeling them out. Can they be trusted? Are they willing to fight? Do they have the courage to risk everything? It's delicate work, dangerous work, because you never know who's an informer. You never know who's going to take your money and your weapons and then turn you in to the Gestapo for a reward. And here's the thing. Suttle's French isn't perfect. He's British. He was born in France to a British father and French mother, so he speaks fluently, but his accent can give him away. There's something about the way he pronounces certain words, the rhythm of his speech. A trained ear can tell he's not quite French, and in occupied France, that's a death sentence. So Andrée does most of the talking. She's the face of the operation. She's the one making the contacts. doing the recruiting, building the relationships. They pose as brother and sister. Andrée and Francis Urbain, their cover names. They're salespeople for agricultural products, traveling around the countryside, meeting farmers, talking about seeds and fertilizer and crop yields. Boring stuff, the kind of thing that makes German soldiers at checkpoints wave you through without a second glance. And all the while, they're actually recruiting resistance fighters, identifying fields for weapons drops, planning sabotage operations. They travel together constantly, sometimes by train, sometimes by bicycle, sometimes on foot, always carrying forged papers, always ready with their cover story, always knowing that at any checkpoint, any stop, any random search, it could all be over. The stress of that is unimaginable. Every time you see a German uniform, your heart rate spikes. Every time someone looks at you twice, you wonder if they recognize you, if they suspect something. You're performing all the time. You can never relax. You can never let your guard down, because one mistake, one slip, one moment of inattention, and you're dead. And the network grows. Fast. By November 1942, they've got hundreds of people involved. Resistance fighters in cells all across northern France, farmers offering their fields for drops, factory workers ready to sabotage production, railway workers ready to derail trains, couriers moving messages and supplies, safe houses hiding agents and fugitives. It's becoming one of the most successful SOE networks in France. And Andrée Borrel is at the center of it all. November 17th to 18th, 1942, their first weapons drop, near Étrepagny, about 60 miles northwest of Paris. Picture this. It's the middle of the night, pitch dark. Andrée, Sutil, Gilbert Norman, the radio operator, and Yvonne Roudelat, another female agent. They're standing in a field, waiting, listening. And then they hear it, the drone of an airplane engine, a British bomber flying low over occupied France. Inside that plane, British airmen who volunteered for this mission, flying over enemy territory, risking being shot down, all to deliver weapons to the French resistance. The plane makes its approach. The dispatcher in the back pushes the containers out. They tumble through the air, parachutes deploying, drifting down into the French countryside. CLE canisters, they're called. Metal containers, packed with weapons. Sten guns, pistols, grenades, explosives, ammunition. Everything a resistance network needs to fight back. And Andrée and the others are rushing around in the dark, gathering the parachutes, dragging the heavy containers to hiding spots, covering their tracks. It's back-breaking work. Those containers are heavy, maybe 150, 200 pounds each. And they have to move fast, get everything hidden before dawn, before German patrols come through, before collaborators notice something's wrong. This is the first drop, but it's not the last. Over the next few months there will be many more. Dozens of drops, tons of weapons. The Prosper Network is arming the resistance. They're preparing for the day when the Allies invade, when the order comes to rise up, when ordinary French people will take up arms and help liberate their country from Nazi occupation. And Andrée's part of all of it. She's organizing these drops. She's finding the fields. She's coordinating with London. She's arranging for people to transport the weapons and distribute them to resistance cells. She's one of the most important people in the entire network. Not because she's the leader, but because she's the one making things happen on the ground. She's the doer, the implementer, the person who turns plans into reality. But here's where it gets complicated, because Subtle initially didn't want Andrée as his courier. Why? He said that as a married man, he might find the enforced proximity a strain. Think about what that means. He's worried about getting too close to her, He's worried about attraction, about complications. But SOE headquarters insists. She's the best person for the job, so she stays. And she becomes more than a courier. She becomes his lieutenant, his right hand, his partner in building the network. And then there's Gilbert Norman, the radio operator, codename Archambaud. He and Andrée become lovers. He's handsome, upper class, wealthy. She's working class, tough, scrappy. They're total opposites. But in the middle of occupied France, facing death every day, they fall for each other. It happens. You're living on the edge, every moment could be your last, and you grab onto whatever connection you can find. Subtle writes a note to SOE headquarters in March 1943. Listen to what he says about Andrée. Everyone who has come into contact with her in her work agrees with myself that she is the best of us all. In Jay's absence, she acted as my lieutenant, shared every danger, took part in a December reception committee with myself and some others, has a perfect understanding of security and an imperturbable calmness. Thank you very much for having sent her to me. The best of us all. That's what the network leader said about her. And here's something I want you to think about. We're about halfway through this story, and I hope you're starting to understand who Andrée Borrel really was. Not just a name in a history book, not just the first female agent, but a real person. A woman with fears and hopes and dreams. A woman who loved cycling and climbing. A woman who fell in love in the middle of a war. A woman who laughed and smoked cigarettes and played poker with her friends. A woman who was terrified every single day but did her job anyway. And if you're finding value in this story, if you're glad you're learning about Andrée Borrel, I want to ask you to do something for me. Hit the like button. I know, it seems like a small thing, but here's why it matters. When you like this video, YouTube's algorithm sees that people are engaging with it, and that means YouTube shows it to more people, which means more people learn about Andrée Borrel. More people understand what these women sacrificed. More people remember. And look, I get it. Maybe you're thinking, why should I care about something that happened 80 years ago? Let me tell you why. Because the choices Andrée made, the courage she showed, the values she stood for, they're timeless. Standing up to evil, helping people in need, risking everything for what you believe in. Those aren't just World War II values. Those are human values. And in a world that sometimes feels like it's losing its way, we need reminders of what real courage looks like. We need heroes. And Andrée Borrel is a hero worth remembering. So, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story. Help keep her memory alive. Thank you. And here's the problem. The Prosper network was growing too fast. Security was getting sloppy. In November 1942, German agents had stolen a list of more than 200 people involved in another resistance network called CART. A lot of those same people were now working with Prosper. The Germans knew their names, they knew their faces, they were building files, watching, waiting, being patient, gathering evidence, building a case, waiting for the right moment to strike and destroy the entire network in one swoop. And Prosper itself was violating its own security protocols left and right. Too many agents using the same safe houses. The apartment of Germaine Tambour was being used as a letter drop and meeting place for at least 10 different SOE agents. That's insane. That's like putting all your eggs in one basket and then juggling the basket while walking a tightrope. If the Gestapo found that apartment, if they staked it out, they could round up half the network in one night. Too many agents meeting in the same cafes and restaurants, places that specialized in black market luxuries, good food, wine, things normal French people couldn't afford under rationing. So these cafes were full of black marketeers, collaborators, informers, and SOE agents all mixed together. It was a recipe for disaster. Andrée herself played poker with other SOE agents in Paris cafes. She'd sit there, playing cards, smoking cigarettes, laughing with other agents. It violated every security protocol. Networks were supposed to be separate, independent, compartmentalized. If one network gets compromised, it shouldn't bring down the others. But in Paris, everyone knew everyone. Everyone socialized together. It was dangerous. Why did they do it? Because they were human. Because they were young. Because they were living under incredible stress and they needed some sense of normalcy, some connection, some relief from the constant tension. Because when you're facing death every day, you grab on to whatever happiness you can find. You take the moments of joy when they come. You bond with the only people who understand what you're going through. It's understandable. It's human. And it was going to get them all killed, and there was something even worse. A double agent, Henri Dericourt. He was an air movements officer for SOE, responsible for organizing the secret flights that brought agents in and out of France. Except he was also working for the Germans. He was providing information to the Gestapo about Prosper. Names, locations, operations, everything. The Germans knew things they shouldn't know. They were watching, they were tracking, they were building their case. And they were patient. They didn't strike immediately. They let the network keep growing, let more people get involved, let more evidence accumulate. So when they finally struck, they could destroy everything at once. April 1943. The Germans start making arrests, small ones at first, testing the network, seeing what they know. And then, June 23rd to 24th, 1943, they strike, hard. Francis Suttle, arrested. Gilbert Norman, arrested. Andrée Borrel, arrested. Hundreds of others over the following months. The Prosper network is destroyed. The SOE's largest and most important network in France, rolled up by the Gestapo in a matter of days. Now listen, if you think you've heard horrible things already, you need to prepare yourself, because what happened to Andrée Borrel after her arrest is beyond comprehension. The Gestapo interrogated her. They had ways of making people talk, torture, pain, fear, breaking people down until they gave up everything. But Andrée didn't talk. One author described her as showing a silence so disdainful that the Germans did not attempt to break it. She looked at her captors with contempt. She refused to give them anything. They couldn't break her. Think about what that takes, the will to endure torture and refuse to speak. That's not normal courage. That's something beyond. They transferred her to Pyrenees prison in Paris. She's in a cell now, cut off from the world. But she manages to smuggle out notes to her mother, written on cigarette paper, hidden in her laundry. She asks for a notebook, for hairpins. She sends her love. She tries to reassure her mother that she's okay. Her mother and sister are in Paris the whole time, knowing André's in prison, knowing what the Gestapo does to prisoners, unable to help. May 13th, 1944. Almost a year after her arrest, Andrée and 7 other female SOE agents are moved from France to 84 Avenue Foch, the Gestapo headquarters in Paris. Then they're put on a train to Germany. Each woman is handcuffed to a guard. One of the women, Odette Sansom, survived the war and gave an interview about that train ride. She said, "We were starting on this journey together in fear, but all of us hoping for something, above all, that we would remain together. We had all had a taste already of what things could be like. None of us did expect for anything very much. We all knew that they could put us to death. I was the only one officially condemned to death. The others were not, but there is always a fugitive ray of hope that some miracle will take place. They arrive at Karlsruhe prison in Germany. They're put in separate cells, and for a while, things are actually better than they were in France. They're treated like regular prisoners, not like special targets. They're given work to do, peeling potatoes, sewing, things to pass the time. They can hear Allied bombers flying overhead, heading deeper into Germany. They know the war's coming to an end. They know liberation is coming. They think they might survive. July 6, 1944. Before dawn, around 5 or 6 in the morning, not even 2 months after they arrived, guards come to the cells of 4 women, Andrée Borrel, Vera Ley, Sonia Olshanesky, Diana Roden. They're told to gather their personal belongings. They're escorted out and put into a closed truck. They're driven 100 kilometers southwest to a place called Natzweiler Struthof. It's a concentration camp in France, and they're being taken there to be executed. The truck arrives around 3:30 in the afternoon. The women's arrival is unexpected. The camp wasn't told they were coming, but the order is clear. These 4 women are to be executed immediately. SS men lead the women through the camp. Prisoners see them. One French prisoner said, "One could see from their appearance that they hadn't come from a camp. They seemed young, they were fairly well groomed, their clothes were not rubbish, their hair was brushed, and each had a case in their hand." They're taken to cells at the bottom of the camp. For hours they wait. They manage to communicate with prisoners in the infirmary across from their cells. One of those prisoners is a Belgian doctor named Georges Bougertz. He passes cigarettes to one of the women, later identified as Andrée from a photograph. She throws him a little tobacco pouch with some money inside. Another prisoner, Albert Guéris, recognizes Andrée. He'd run the PAT line, the escape network she'd worked with back in 1941. He tries to speak with her. She disappears into the cell block. That night, the executions begin. Inside the crematorium building, each woman in turn is told to undress for a medical check. A doctor tells her she's getting a vaccination for typhus. It's a lie. He injects her with 10 cubic centimeters of phenol. It's supposed to be lethal. The woman loses consciousness, and then, while she's unconscious, she's shoved into the crematorium oven, alive. Franz Berg, a prisoner who worked in the crematorium, was locked in his room during the executions. But from a window, he and other prisoners could see into the corridor. They heard everything. Berg later testified, "We heard low voices in the next room and then the noise of a body being dragged along the floor. We heard heavy breathing and low groaning, and again we heard the same noises and regular groans as the insensible women were dragged away." The first 3 women were unconscious when they were put into the ovens. They were dragged. They groaned. They couldn't fight back. But the 4th woman woke up. Berg testified, "The 4th, however, resisted in the corridor. I heard her say, 'Pourquoi?' Why?' And I heard a voice I recognized as the doctor, who was in civilian clothes, say, 'Poor typhus,' for typhus. We then heard the noise of a struggle and the muffled cries of the woman. I assumed that someone held a hand over her mouth. I heard the woman being dragged away, too. She was groaning louder than the others. From the noise of the crematorium oven doors which I heard, I can state definitely that in each case the groaning women were placed immediately in the crematorium oven. Multiple witnesses talked about that 4th woman. Another prisoner, Walter Schultz, said that the SS medical orderly told him this: "When the last woman was halfway in the oven, she had been put in feet first. She had come to her senses and struggled. As there were sufficient men there, they were able to push her into the oven, but not before she had resisted and scratched Peter Straub's face." Straub was the camp executioner. The next day, witnesses saw that his face had been severely scratched. Nobody knows for certain which woman was 4th. Nobody knows if it was Andrée. But someone woke up while they were pushing her into that oven. Someone fought back. Someone scratched her executioner's face before they forced her into the fire. Alive, conscious, aware, and they burned her anyway. 4 women, 4 bodies in the crematorium. Berg said, "When the officials had gone, we went to the crematorium oven, opened the door, and saw that there were 4 blackened bodies within. Next morning, in the course of my duties, I had to clear the ashes out of the crematorium oven. I found a pink woman's stocking garter on the floor near the oven." Andrée Borrel was 24 years old when she died. She'd volunteered for the most dangerous job in the war. She'd jumped into occupied France when no other woman had. She'd built one of the most successful resistance networks in Europe. She'd been captured, tortured, imprisoned, and then she'd been murdered in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. After the war, the men responsible were tried. Werner Rode, the camp doctor who gave the injections, was executed. Franz Berg, who helped with the crematorium, was sentenced to 5 years, but was later executed for other crimes. Fritz Hartjenstein, the camp commandant, got life in prison. Peter Straub, the executioner, got 13 years. Now, if you're feeling angry right now, you should be. If you're feeling heartbroken, you should be. Because what happened to Andrée Borrel was a war crime. It was murder. It was evil. But here's what I need you to understand. Here's what matters. Andrée Borrel knew the risks. She knew what could happen. She knew that if she was caught, the Gestapo would torture her and kill her. And she volunteered anyway. She demanded to go. She fought for the chance to jump into France and fight the Nazis. Nobody made her do it. She chose it. And here's the other thing. After her arrest, the SOE prepared a citation for an award. Listen to what it says. This officer was parachuted into France in November 1942 as an assistant to an organizer in the Paris area. She proved herself an able and devoted lieutenant and was appointed second in command of the organization. Owing to her cool judgment, she was always chosen for the most delicate and dangerous work, such as recruiting and arranging rendezvous, and she acted as cutout for her commanding officer. Lieutenant Borrel was also given the task of organizing parachute dropping operations and took part in several coups de main, notably an operation against the Chevilly power station in March 1943. She distinguished herself by her coolness and efficiency, and always volunteered for the most dangerous tasks. Her commanding officer paid tribute to her great qualities, describing her as a perfect lieutenant, an excellent organizer who shares all the dangers. Lieutenant Borrel was arrested by the Gestapo in July 1943. For her great bravery and devotion to duty during 9 months of active underground work in France, it is recommended that she be appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire. She was arrested in June, not July, but the rest is accurate. The most delicate and dangerous work, always volunteered for the most dangerous tasks, a perfect lieutenant. That's who Andrée Borrel was. Posthumously, France awarded her the Croix de Guerre and the Médaille de la Résistance. Britain gave her the King's Commendation for brave conduct. There's a memorial plaque for her at Natzweiler Struthof. She's listed on the Roll of Honor at the Valençay SOE Memorial. There's a memorial at Tempsford, the airfield she flew from. There's the SOE Agents Memorial in London, and in 2022, a monument was erected in Saint-Laurent-Nouan, the village where she parachuted in, honoring her and Lise de Bessac. But here's what really matters about Andrée Borrel's story. She was the first. When she jumped out of that plane in September 1942, no woman had ever done what she was doing. She was opening the door. She was proving it could be done. And after her, other women followed. Dozens of them. Female SOE agents parachuting into France, working undercover, organizing resistance, sabotaging Nazi operations. Some of them survived, many of them didn't, but they all followed the path that Andrée Borrel opened. And here's the beautiful tragedy of it. Andrée wasn't special in the sense that she had some unique superpower. She wasn't a trained spy from birth. She wasn't an aristocrat with connections and resources. She was a working-class girl from the Paris suburbs, a shop assistant, a tomboy who liked cycling. She became extraordinary because she chose to be. She saw evil, and she decided to fight it. She saw danger, and she walked toward it. She saw a mission that needed doing, and she volunteered. You know what that means? That means any of us could be Andrée Borrel. Not in the sense that any of us could jump out of a plane into Nazi-occupied France. Most of us will never face that. But in the sense that courage isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose. It's a decision you make every day. Do I look away, or do I act? Do I stay safe, or do I do what's right? Andrée Borrel chose to act. She chose to do what's right, and it cost her everything. Here's something I think about a lot. Andrée spent almost a year in prison before they killed her. A year. Think about that. A year of knowing she was going to die, a year of torture and interrogation, a year of separation from her family, from her friends, from Gilbert Norman, the man she loved. He was executed too, by the way, shot in Germany in September 1944. They both knew they were going to die. They both knew there was no escape, and they both kept their silence. They didn't give up their comrades. They didn't betray the network. They protected the people they'd worked with, even though it meant their own deaths. That's loyalty. That's honor. That's what real heroism looks like. And here's the thing that breaks my heart. For decades after the war, Andrée Borrel was largely forgotten. Her story wasn't in the movies. She wasn't celebrated. People knew about male SOE agents. People knew about some of the female agents who survived and wrote memoirs. But Andrée, the first, the one who opened the door, was nearly forgotten. Why? Because she didn't survive to tell her story. Because the people who could have told it were killed too. Because it took years, decades, for the full truth of what happened at Natzweiler Struthof to come out. But now we know. Now we can tell her story. Now we can honor her memory. And that's why I'm telling you about her tonight. Because Andrée Borrel deserves to be remembered. Not just as a footnote in history, not just as the first female agent, but as a person, as a daughter who sent notes to her mother from prison, as a lover who fell for her radio operator in the middle of a war, as a tomboy from the Paris suburbs who became one of the most important resistance fighters in France, as a woman who chose courage every single day until the day she died. You know what I wish? I wish I could have met her. I wish I could have shared a cigarette with her, heard her laugh, listened to her stories. I wish she'd survived. I wish she'd lived to be an old woman, telling her grandchildren about the time she parachuted into France and fought the Nazis. I wish the war hadn't taken her, but it did, and all we can do now is remember. All we can do is tell her story. All we can do is make sure that Andrée Borrel, the first woman to parachute into Nazi-occupied France, is never forgotten. And if you're still with me, if you've listened to this whole story, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to think about what courage means to you. Because we're not facing what Andrée faced. We're not jumping out of planes into enemy territory. We're not organizing resistance networks or dodging the Gestapo. But we all face moments where we have to choose. Do we speak up or stay silent? Do we stand up for what's right or look the other way? Do we take the easy path or the hard one? Andrée Borrel chose the hard path every single time, and that's why her story matters. That's why we remember her. That's why she's a hero. In 1985, an SOE agent and painter named Brian Stonehouse, who saw Andrée and the three other women at Natzweiler Struthof just before their deaths, painted a watercolor of the four women. It hangs in the Special Forces Club in London. 4 women, 4 heroes, 4 people who gave everything for freedom. And Andrée Borrel was one of them. The first woman to jump. The first woman to prove it could be done. Let me tell you one more thing, one more detail that I think captures who Andrée was. Remember that prisoner, Georges Bougertz, who passed cigarettes to her through the window at Natzweiler? She threw him her tobacco pouch with money in it. Even there, even in that place, even knowing she was about to die, she was thinking about other people. She was sharing what little she had. That's who Andrée Borrel was, generous, compassionate, human. She never lost that, even at the end. The last thing I want to say is this. There's a line from a poem about the SOE agents. It says, "To whom war denied a known and honored grave." That's Andrée Borrel. She doesn't have a grave. Her ashes were scattered somewhere at Natzweiler Struthof, mixed with the ashes of countless others. There's no headstone with her name, no place her family could visit, but she has something better than a grave. She has a legacy. Every woman who serves in intelligence, every female soldier, every woman who takes on a dangerous mission, they're walking a path that Andrée Borrel opened. She was the first, and because she was first, others could follow. So tonight, when you go to bed, think about Andrée Borrel. Think about the shop girl from the Paris suburbs who became a hero. Think about the woman who jumped out of a plane into Nazi-occupied France when no other woman had. Think about the resistance fighter who built networks, organized drops, and never broke under torture. Think about the prisoner who sent love notes to her mother from Frayne prison and shared her cigarettes with strangers at Natzweiler. Think about the woman who died in a crematorium oven at 24 years old, fighting evil until the very end, fighting even as they pushed her into the flames. And if you've made it this far with me, if you've listened to this whole story, if Andrée Borrel's courage has moved you the way it moves me, I want to ask you one last time. Subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story, because that's how we keep Andrée alive. That's how we honor her memory, not just with monuments and plaques, though those matter, but by telling her story, by making sure people know her name, by making sure her courage inspires new generations. That's what subscription means. It means you value these stories. It means you want to hear more. It means you're helping keep history alive. So, subscribe. Leave a comment telling me what you thought. Tell me what Andrée's story meant to you. Let's keep her memory alive together. Do me a favor. Share her story. Tell someone else about her. Post about her on social media. Send this video to a friend. Make sure she's remembered. Because that's what heroes deserve. Not just monuments and medals, though those are important, but memory, story, the knowledge that what they did mattered, that their courage meant something, that they changed the world. Andrée Borrel changed the world. She opened a door that had been closed. She proved that women could do the impossible. She fought evil with everything she had, and she never, ever gave up. Even when they captured her, even when they tortured her, even when they put her on a train to Germany knowing she was going to die, even in that crematorium when she woke up and realized what was happening, she fought. She scratched her executioner's face. She resisted until the very end. That's a hero. That's a legend. That's someone worth remembering. So remember her. Remember Andrée Borrel, the first woman to jump into France for the SOE, the woman who opened the way for every female agent who came after, the woman who proved that courage has no gender, that heroism comes in all forms, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones nobody saw coming. A shop girl from the Paris suburbs, a bakery worker, a tomboy who loved cycling and climbing, a woman who saw evil and chose to fight it, a woman who saw danger and walked toward it, a woman who saw a mission that needed doing and volunteered, a woman who gave everything for freedom, a woman who changed history. Andrée Borrel. Never, ever forget her name. The pioneers pay the price. That was the hook for this story, remember? The pioneers pay. Andrée Borrel paid the ultimate price. She was the first. She opened the door. And it cost her everything. But because she went first, others could follow. Because she proved it could be done, the SOE sent dozens more women into France. Some survived, many didn't. But they all followed the path Andrée blazed. They all walked through the door she opened. They all benefited from the lessons learned from her mission, from her sacrifice. And here's the thing about pioneers. You don't become a pioneer by playing it safe. You don't become first by waiting for someone else to go ahead. You become first by stepping into the unknown, by volunteering for the mission nobody's done before, by saying yes when everyone else says it's impossible. That's what Andrée did. When the SOE said they wanted to send women into occupied France by parachute, when they said it had never been done before, when everyone was skeptical, Andrée said yes. She demanded to go. She fought for the chance, and she became the first. Your generation understands the value of pioneers. You lived through times when the world changed, when new technologies emerged, when society shifted. You've seen pioneers in every field, the first people to do things that everyone said couldn't be done. And you know what? A lot of those pioneers paid a price. Some failed, some died trying, but they opened the way for everyone who came after. That's Andrée's legacy. She paid the price so others could follow. She was the first so there could be a second and a third and dozens more. She sacrificed everything so that women could prove they belonged in the fight. And she succeeded. She proved it. She showed the world that women could parachute into enemy territory, organize resistance networks, face torture without breaking, and die with courage. She showed the world what women were capable of. And the world has never been the same. Thank you for listening to this story. Thank you for caring about Andrée Borrel. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it made you think about what courage really means, then Andrée's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Because her story is still changing lives, still inspiring people, still showing us what's possible when you choose courage over fear, action over passivity, sacrifice over safety. That's her gift to us. That's her legacy. And as long as we remember her, as long as we tell her story, she lives on. Andrée Borrel, the first woman to parachute into Nazi-occupied France, the woman who opened the way, the hero we should never forget.